class. But is it about that, or is it really about the fact that you can actually generate spectacular outcomes by just simply working hard, or practice, or simply the right network, or the right time, or is it about luck, or is it positioning yourself? Is all these things come about. So in the end, is genius. I mean, you look at people like Tiger Woods or Beethoven, all these other players, or Mozart. These people are positioned as geniuses, but in fact, if you ask them, it is about the amount of hours that they put in to make the thing come out. So, so we thought that generating genius is how could we look at perhaps disadvantaged students across the piece and target them and really ensure that they just are on track to realize their potential. And so that's what it is, And the way we do it works simply, is that we give them a kind of almost a template for success. And that really is about exposing them to the right opportunities. So for example, they go to universities, they practice what they want to do in terms of their jobs. It's also about knowledge. So some students just do not know the right facts. I mean, and right facts can be about even applying to the right universities. They just don't know. So, so you can have this situation where a student who is tracked to do very well ends up at a non-Ivy League university. And that is because nobody told them about the name of the university or where to go or how to fill in the form. That's one of the reasons why affirmative action collapses in the US, I think, because it ends up with people who are already going to get there anyway. And the poor people always miss out on it. And I think that's what we try and do. We try and get them, position them so they have the right knowledge in terms of the curriculum and the knowledge to pass the exams. We give them the network so that they can actually engage the opportunity. And we also expose them out of their little world, where it be their peer groups or wherever, to a wider world, like I had, where they can see wider opportunities for them and realize it. It's a basic formula that you just use. You work with the students over a long period of time. We say 5 years, and then they get to realize their dream.
What are some challenges you had in the beginning when you first started?
The challenge is always about funding to a certain extent and people actually putting money in. But I found earlier on that people got what we were trying to do and they did fund us. I'm still surprised that we're still going because for charities, it's always it's hard to convince people to fund what you do. But I actually think now that the model we do now, how we work, is that we love people to give us money, and anybody watching now, please donate. The website is there for you.
What is the website address, Tony? What is the website address?
Get on there, give us your hard-earned dollar. But apart from that, we earn our way out. So for example, we sell our services to schools. So we say to a school, look, we know that those students came into your school. This is a high school. I mean, we're working with very bright students. We know they came into your school at 11 with top grades, with great potential, and you've let them down. Be honest, you've let them down because you don't know what you're doing. So call us in, and we will help you. And that's the contract. But you pay for us to help you. And that kind of model seems to work because in the end, you're existing in a market, and the integrity is that you will deliver. Otherwise, you won't eat.
So the schools are some of your main partners?
Schools are our main. Universities have become our main partners as well. Yeah, because universities in England now, what we have is a situation now where their fees that they charge to students is predicated on the fact that they're able to demonstrate that they're getting students in from disadvantaged backgrounds who are bright. So most of those universities don't know how to find those students and how to track them to their university. So we simply have a deal with the university again that says, look, pay us, we'll find them, we'll deliver them to you, and you will be able to say to the government, look, we fulfilled our end of the deal. So everyone's happy.
And the funding, Tony, I want you to give that website address if you don't mind. What is your web address?
Oh, the web address. Okay. www.generatinggenius.org.uk, or simply Google Generating Genius.
Generating Genius. And how is your vision, would you say, your original vision compared to what it is now today? Has it evolved? Did you have to did you recalibrate a little bit? How would you compare it?
We did. You're right. I mean, that's a good thing to talk about. Anybody wanting to start a charity, I could advise them what not to do. I mean, what tends to happen is a lot of people set up charities and go in because it's either a personal thing or they feel that they've got to kind of fulfill a vision that is driving them, and that's well and good. But I think if you're going to sustain something, that's a need, because there's loads of needs out there, and why should your one be better than anybody else? I think what you've got to do is try and look at what's already exists and map your thing onto what already is out there. I do think the idea of totally reinventing the wheel is strange. I think there's so much additional things you can do to what's already out there that I think that the strategy for charities is what I call additionality, to put on to things that are not working. So, for example, for us, schools and universities trying to engage disadvantaged students and make life work for them is a no-brainer for us, because the schools are already there doing things, but they just need additional help. And I think for me, that's where I see our charity helping those two institutions deliver. Now, obviously, subsequently for that, you corporates and all the other bodies get benefit as well, because they can get there's a feeder into talent for them as well, talent development for them as well. And again, I would, if they were going to, sometimes these corporates try and indulge in that as well. And I think that they should think carefully about how they do that and make sure that it's not tokenism, but it really is strategic and really helping those students on a scale that's going to make a difference. Too many projects, they're here today and gone tomorrow. And I think that's because they haven't thought this thing through.
Would it be accurate, Tony, to say you're one of those people who speak up about things that matter?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that there are a lot of people doing a lot of talking out there, and you hear them, and I think that people listen to people who've got passion, who don't really want to hear somebody who says, "Well, if you roll it up on the screen and say, well, I'm just here because, just talk to me because, what have you got to sell? What are you passionate about?" And we tend to follow those people, and we tend to believe in them if they've got great passion. But the problem with the great passion is that it tends to lead off them to that kind of sense of almost being overpowering, or it can just lead to a lack of focus and orientation. And so that's the problem when things are driven by that. So I kind of like to kind of give, see myself in a balance in between passion and between kind of a steady kind of look at how things can work, and constantly reviewing where I'm going, and making sure that things work properly. So I do think that's why we've been around for so long now, because we've reviewed ourselves, and I think that's important.
But I also realized that Generating Genius has a group of people who make this organism work and run. How challenging was it to put together the right team for this organization?
All right, let me tell you a secret about teams, and I'll be very honest with you. Lots of people come on and they front an organization, and it appears as if there's thousands and thousands of people working behind it. We've got a very small team, and that really works for lots of organizations. Where you're big is who you partner with. So we're linked to, and they do. So they either brand it for you, or they either um, do the heavy lifting for you, depending on who they are. So, we've got Google, Barclays, Johnson Matthey, the RAF, all these names are there, L'Oreal, Shell, they're all there, but they're partners. And then the universities as well, UCL, Oxford, Cambridge, so they're linked to us, and that's the way we work. We kind of have, so the team, in a sense, is almost like I call a brokerage. They actually just broker the partners for our needs, and that's the best fit for it.
One quick question before we take a break. What comes to mind when you come in contact with a high achieving student from a disadvantaged community?
I mean, sorry, I mean, you're talking about really how do I view that person? How do I see?
No. What happens when you meet a few students or a person that is a high achieving student, and you realize that they come from a disadvantaged community? What kicks into gear? What comes to mind for you?
Well, I simply see them as somebody who has the potential to do really well. I mean, their disadvantage, or whatever you want to call it, or the thing that might be the block, isn't really a problem for me. It's just, and I think that's the message they get from me. There is a no excuse culture here. It doesn't matter what background you're coming from. You are going to this university, or you're going to be this, because that's where your potential pushes you. So, and that's why I think the kids like the program, because they see in me and they see in the people around us just that pure potential, and getting that realized.
And just quickly, for those who are looking at this program and thinking about implementing a similar model and so on, why is it so important to have that approach with students, that this no nonsense approach, that your background doesn't really mean anything? You have to really do what is required of you to do.
Because I think, and this is more controversial now. I think we should get into the controversy stuff now. I think that in fact often that's been used in certain contexts, in England in the black context to a certain extent, even in the Caribbean to a certain extent, but that's used as an excuse sometimes to not realize it. So what happens is, the background, people then keep telling you all the reasons why they couldn't do it, and who was, and what system, and what institutionalized whatever was blocking them from realizing their dreams. Now, often when you kind of drill down, the big problem really was not necessarily the circumstances around them, although that is important, but what was really the thing that was holding it was an inability really to break away from maybe conditions that were blocking you from success, and they not necessarily are people who are close to you. And my research really showed that in my PhD, that in fact often that was your peer group, often that was your network, often that could even be your family. So, who are you blaming then? So I do think that there are a real kind of, and then of course sometimes the blockages themselves get to become almost a kind of, how can I explain it? They almost become
like a crutch.
Blocking. It is not even the crutch. They actually become almost an alternative. So that in fact, I see this, for example, in maybe even the music culture or even the sports culture. So that in fact, you then turn to this alternative, and that's what you take on as your kind of your vision, and you go down that route, and then wherever that takes you. And then, of course, that could take you even to then feeling that, well, maybe I don't really want to move out of the ghetto or whatever. That the ghetto is so fabulous that I want to stay here, or it's a village, or it's something that is something that I want to adore. Now, I never really could understand that, because migration, and I'm from a culture that is from migrants. We were always about moving on and change and transformation. We weren't really about worshipping the ghetto, because the ghetto was really something we all wanted to be middle class in the end, whatever that means. Now, there's another consciousness that says, no, wait a minute, let's stop and let's just let that become the thing in itself. And the progress, particularly with young people, stops there. And I think that added to that, you have a commercialization of that. So then, in fact, MTV, or whatever you want to call it, the marketing of products, where in fact, you know, to actually move out of that situation for a young person is very difficult, because it's seen as something that's cool. And I don't necessarily think there was never anything really cool in Brixton. It was cool on one level, but most of the people I knew were just on sitting on the wall drinking cans of Tennent's and beer, and that was it. They would go, nothing was happening, and chatting foolishness. Nothing was moving for us, and so there was nothing fabulous about that. So so I think that my view on this is that, and you can talk to about your the Guyanese audience that's watching this today. I mean, why are they all in Canada and the US and some in England? They never thought what was happening to them at that particular point. They couldn't make a living. They couldn't move on, so they moved out. What's happening in parts of the United States, for example, the indigenous populations, and I'm thinking of African Americans, I'm thinking of African Caribbean young people, is that there isn't that sense of urgency, or it's less around wanting to move on and move out, because you actually almost become, it's like the Stockholm syndrome, you know, that sort of syndrome where you kind of almost fall in love with your captor, you know, and you want to stay there and hug him and hug her, even though that thing's imprisoned you for so long. You still kind of want it because you like Nike shoes and all the things that are around it, but you don't really want to move on, because it's what you're used to. Yeah,
I got it.
I'll give you a clear example of that. We struggle to get our students to apply for universities outside of London, because they're petrified of just being the only black person in the class or in a college or whatever. And yet those schools or those universities could be really better than what they are going to apply for. But because they haven't got a mentality long enough to actually handle the wider world, they have to sit back and just say, well, I'll just take what's given to me, which is the nearest one to a bus ride away from where I live. That wasn't really the project when we came out of slavery. I think it was a little bit wider than that.
Yes.
So that's my struggle often with young people, to sort of get them to see broader and wider. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't.
Let's take a break, Tony.